business to new insane revenue levels doesn't have to be overwhelming. It's all about the right strategy, team, efficiencies, and confidence. Welcome to the Entrepreneur Evolution podcast. With over 1 million downloads, it's the go-to business podcast dedicated to business owners who want to evolve out of operating in the day-to-day and make their dreams come true. I'm your host, Annette Walter, and I'm so happy you are here. As a former banker, I have now been an entrepreneur for over 15 years and have started, grown, acquired, and sold over 20 multi-million-dollar companies to date. Together, you and I will strengthen your existing business, build your dream team and process, grow your wealth and legacy, all while surrounding you with a community of rockstar entrepreneurs just like yourself. Are you ready to evolve? Let's get started. Welcome to this week's episode of the Entrepreneur Evolution podcast. This week's guest is Mike Michalowicz. Some of you know him. Some of you may not know him. And if you don't, you need to read his books. He's awesome. He's so relatable, so kind, and so generous in this interview with his journey and all that he has learned. He's the author of multiple books. The Profit First is one of the most popular. There's also Clockwork, and most differently, Get Different. And if you are someone that likes to listen to Audible, he is awesome on Audible. He reads all of his own books, and it's just great to listen to him. You feel like he's your buddy, really right there next to you, coaching you, helping you with these small steps that really make a huge impact on your entrepreneurial journey. So please help me welcome Mike. And if you like today's podcast, if you like this episode, we love hearing from you. So make sure you leave a review. Let us know what you liked about the podcast. Make sure you hit the plus button and hit subscribe. And as always, if you need some time to talk about your business, the link is below to schedule a breakthrough session with me. I actually implement the Profit First at both of my companies, Timber Industries and I Evolve Consulting. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have to really help you through that at all. Or I can definitely point you in the right direction and point you closer to Mike's resources and even some more specific resources on his team. So enjoy. Thank you for being here. Keep evolving, entrepreneur. I am so proud of you. Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing well, Annette. Thanks for having me.
I am really happy you are here with our audience. They love you. They adore you. Many know you. And if they don't know you, they need to know you. So thank you for being here. Today, we're joined by Mike Michalowicz, who is just a rock star entrepreneur and creating just a huge community of rock star entrepreneurs like the audience we have here. So author of multiple books, specifically Profit First. I think that's your most notable, and most recently, Get Different. So hello.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the books.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So I know you've been on so many podcasts, so I don't want this to feel like your traditional kind of interview, but give us the quick update for those that may not know you, and then we'll dive deeper into some current questions that I actually collected this morning from a lot of people who have read your book.
Oh, yeah, I love to dig into it. So I've been an entrepreneur my entire adult life, I should say. Mm-hmm. But I think and I've had some wonderful successes and a magnificent failure that kind of was the most important element of my life. I lost everything because of just pure ignorance of how to operate a business. And that was a great restart for me. It was not fun by any stretch of imagination, but I woke up realizing I don't understand entrepreneurship and have devoted my life to studying what makes entrepreneurs successful and what doesn't, and how to help us all, including myself, navigate this entrepreneurial journey successfully. I do own 2 businesses today. I have 4 more businesses that have bought licenses from me. So I'm responsible for 6 companies, but I don't operate them. I'm a shareholder in those businesses, and I admittedly use them as guinea pigs too, as I test out new concepts of what makes a small business successful. So I'm a full-time author who happens to have some businesses and just I love the entrepreneurial journey.
It's great. It's great. And, I started working with a business coach prior to being a business coach back in 2009.
Yeah.
And he had a very similar story. He had this huge company and a big moment to sell to his competitor, thought his competitor had no chance of not taking the deal. And he didn't take the deal. And then his competitor really squashed him and he went huge failure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where he turned himself around and really used that failure to impact so many others. So do you want to talk about that failure for a second? And just any kind of key points that you want to convey as the big learning points?
Yeah. Failure can be our biggest ally, but it doesn't not feel like it when it's happening. The school of hard knocks is not a fun school. And so I don't wish this upon anybody, but I'm so grateful it happened to me. So what happened was I grew a couple of businesses in the tech space, tech services, sold two. I had a private equity exit and I sold another one to a Fortune 500. Robert Half International was the acquirer. And I thought I was hot shit. Mm-hmm. I thought I was so important. And that became the downfall was when my ego exploded. I was just a big jerk, but didn't feel like I was. But I thought that I was better than everybody else. And that's the definition one of jerk. I started another company thinking I knew everything about entrepreneurship as an angel investor. I was horrible at it. I started 10 companies. All of them were falling apart, not because they were bad people running them, but I had no clue what I was doing as an investor. And I remember watching my bank account just dwindling so fast. So logically I saw that, but emotionally couldn't believe it. I thought that one big vendor would come and buy us or something would happen. I thought that turning moment was coming. And I got a call. It was on February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2008. I remember it so vividly. My accountant, his name is Keith, called and said, I can't believe I'm saying this to you, but is my professional recommendation, you immediately declare bankruptcy. You're not going to be able to sustain any longer. Mm. And I said, well, is there any other options? He goes, well, the only other option is liquidate the few things you have left, which was 2 cars and a house. Mm-hmm. And I chose option 2. We lost our house 30 days later. We went to this hunker Durango that was 10 years old, this rust bucket. That was our family truckster. Mm-hmm. And it was devastating. I came home to my family to tell them we were going to lose things. And I was sobbing because I was ashamed and embarrassed. I was supposed to be the provider. That's how I defined my role in our family. And I was the guy who took it away. Mm-hmm. And my daughter, I write about this in one of my books. My daughter was there. She was 9 years old at the time. And to see your father sobbing in front of you is tough. Mm-hmm. Then for me to say to her, I can't afford for you to go to horseback riding lessons. It was like $20 or $25 for a group session. She went for an hour once a week. I was broke. She ran out of the room and I thought she was running away. She ran to her room to grab her piggy bank and she ran back to me. She put on the table where I was sitting and said, Daddy, since you can't provide for our family, I'll do it. And I get chills just remembering that moment. I was so ashamed and humbled, proud of her. And that became the line in the sand for me. And just, it wasn't like the next morning I woke up and said, oh, I got this figured out now. I went through depression. I started drinking to medicate. I didn't sleep, but it was 2 years of just agony, emotional agony. But I also started to challenge all of my notions, all that. Hopefully the jerk in me was ripped out forever. And all of those beliefs I had that I knew everything about entrepreneurship, I think has been torn away. I realize I know very, very little, but I am thirsty to learn the truths and more. So I from that point forward, I became a curator of knowledge of how to make my businesses run better. Mm-hmm. And then it turned into books because other people I started writing for articles and stuff. And some people said, hey, can you share more detail on this? I'm like, oh, yeah, I was done this for myself. And I made it into a book. That's how Profit First came about. That's how all these books Get Different came about. These are things I don't fundamentally understand. And I'm trying to figure out the root systems that will serve myself and other people.
It's great. I want to go back to a word that you said, embarrassed. And, entrepreneurs are embarrassed to talk about their numbers. It's a really hard time.
Oh, yeah.
And embarrassed whether maybe they don't know how to read in the beginning stages of P&L, or maybe they just, turn into a bobblehead in their accountant and can't really process. They're more creative than numbers people. So your book, Profit First specifically, is so relatable. And, people really walk away and say, yes, I can do this.
Yeah.
So, and I have to give you a huge shout out for the Audible, because it's like, great. You're awesome on Audible.
Oh, thank you. I love doing the Audible.
Hands down, amazing. Like your humor, you're witty. I loved it. And
thank you very much.
Said that too. So it's a good middle ground for those small steps. I have two companies. I have a national lumber company, which is a product commodity-based business. And then my consulting business, and I use them in both of my businesses. We implemented it earlier this year when I read the book, and made all the transfers actually today,
nice.
December 2nd, as we say here. And I had one of my other entrepreneurial friends. She said, it's so crazy. You're interviewing him this morning. I just made all my profit first transfers. So,
I love it.
What's the biggest challenge there? Once people implement it, once they know it, and we're going kind of beyond that right now, assuming people know it.
Yeah.
What do you see happen once they're like year 1, year 2 into it? Like what's then? Right.
Well, yeah. I will tell you that in the implementation phase, like day 1, some people say, well, I don't need to do this in my bank. Getting their butt to the bank is probably the biggest impediment. Like, the bank's gonna charge me fees. You can negotiate that, or you can find a different bank.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be such a nightmare setting this up. It's 2 hours to 4 hours of your life that's going to resolve a lifetime of profitability for you. It's a well worth trading. And then people say, I can do this in a spreadsheet or something like this, which we won't. Mm-hmm. If we naturally log into our bank to see how our balance is and make decisions, it must be there. It must intercept our behavior. The 1 or 2 year, we have over 600,000 companies that have implemented Profit First.
Awesome.
And the feedback mostly is about year 1. That's where there's bumps and bruises. Once you have the system going, I think some businesses by year 1 don't have the full system implemented. And I don't think you should start with the full system day 1. To set 5 accounts at one bank and 2 at another could be just too much. I tell people, if nothing else, just go to the bank and set up one brand new account and call it Profit and start allocating 1%. It's the smallest step that'll start winning your confidence that you can take your profit first. Mm-hmm. Then at year 1, if a business hasn't fully implemented all the accounts, they're being crippled. They're kind of half-assing it. By that point, you understand kind of how it works, moving money around, and how you can see with clarity of what money is needed for what intention. But if you don't have all the accounts set up, you don't have a full picture.
Right.
So within year 1, you got to make sure the full system's in place.
Mm-hmm.
In year 2, once you have the system in place, it's going along. It's about constantly tweaking the percentages. I think some businesses just say, I'm going to start off with 1% profit, and they stay with 1% profit for life. And they could be making a lot more. We want to make incremental improvements. That 1% profit, let's try to move it to 2 or 2.5 or 3 and start amplifying it. Are there ways we can reduce the OpEx, which maybe means cutting some costs in the business, but more often it means amplifying margins? How can we dictate more for what we do already? And we start looking at our business. If we don't keep pressure on enhancing those numbers, we stop the pressure on innovating how we're operating our business. Right. So that's kind of the year 1 and 2 challenges.
Got it. That's really great. And I love how you give the baseline for the exact percentages to allocate thing. And people love that.
Yeah. What I did was, I love that. They love that. What I did, and I needed that for myself, was I interviewed 1,000 companies, surveyed 1,000 companies that were the fiscally elite, meaning in their industry, they were the top performers. I also study a lot of public companies. The data with public companies is available readily. So it's very easy to access that. But I looked at all these different industries and compiled it. And I looked at different revenue categories of where the optimal allocations went. And I think what was interesting was when a business is very small, and I define very small as $250,000 in revenue or less. Mm-hmm. And the reason I picked that number is most businesses have a sole operator at that point. Right. The owner pretty much is doing everything. There is a disproportionate compensation to the owner. They are the business, so we have to pay them a lot. Once a business gets to $1 million or $2 or $3 million, then we start seeing the shift where the owner is a designer. They're focused on choreographing the resources in the business, but they're not necessarily doing the work at all. And at that stage, their compensation works differently. There's a shift. There's more profitability distributions, and there's lower owner's compensation. OpEx gets thinned out over time, and I see it actually ramps up again as a business goes through a growth stage at different revenue ranges.
Right.
those things, what I call them TAPs, or target allocation percentages. The argument is that those are simply targets for most businesses. I'm not saying they're the ideal numbers, and I'm not saying that should be where you start. I think businesses should start where they are today. So we all are taking percentages from our business. We just don't know.
Right.
Just look at how much you spend. If $100 comes in and $100 goes out to bills, 100% is your number for OpEx. Right. Maybe the target says we should get that to 60%.
Right.
I'm not saying cut to 60% right away, but can we move 100 down to 95%,
right,
and take that remaining 5%, put in profit, and then next quarter maybe move 95 down to 90. So we want to incrementally move toward those targets.
Right. So good. So good. And it's like like you said, it's just these relatable small steps that you give that are so good. Okay. So here was a question from one of my entrepreneur friends this morning that she wanted me to ask you. So think about like a big resume type of entrepreneur out there. I'm sure you've had 600,000 entrepreneurs that you work with, but think about like a big name, big company. You don't have to say whomever, but where do they get stuck? Okay. Where
like the
are
big
they
ones?
stuck? Yeah. Where are they stuck? Just to make it, I guess, just to humanize that everyone is on this journey and getting stuck somewhere. So what do you see most?
Yeah. So I thought you meant regarding profit first. You mean just in general?
In general.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you with profit first, and I'll give you with general. So in profit first, I see the big companies getting stuck with partner conflict or owner conflict, where there's multiple owners, and someone says, I want to do this, and another one says, I don't want to do this. And now it's like, and nothing moves forward, and neither side is willing to test things out. The interesting thing, I interviewed a security guard who worked for one of the publishing houses, the CEO. This is $1 billion plus company, and they're such a big company. The CEO's net worth, whatever, is extraordinary. They need a personal bodyguard, and this security guard was sitting there, and it was this publisher and other publishing houses. So there was 10 people around the table, all running like $1 billion businesses. And he said, as he listened in, he said, "Oh my God, they have the exact same problem a small business does. They just add a lot of zeros to it." So they struggle hiring people. But instead of hiring that one good candidate, add a couple of zeros. How do you hire 100 good candidates on Monday as opposed to one? They have the same problems with motivation of employees, just on a more frequent scale or a greater scale, but the exact same problems. So motivation of employees acting like owners and really being engaged was a big problem.
Right.
The partner conflict and internal conflict was a problem. Really knowing who their customer was. It's shocking. When you ask a small business owner, you say, "Who's your customer?" And they say, "Everybody." That's a mistake.
Right.
But big businesses were doing this too. Like these big companies, like, we pretty much cater to everybody, and they start diluting their brand down. And there's some businesses, like, you'll know their names, so I'm not going to share them,
right,
who had a community, and they said, "Oh, anyone can be served by this." And they watered down their brand, and they went invisible by that, by doing that. So those are some of the common problems.
So I know that I want to be very aware of your time here. This is so good. And I feel like I could talk to you forever, but, okay. So as we're ending 2021 here with this interview right now in December, what are you seeing, quote unquote, trending in business? How are you seeing the pulse of the economy?
Yeah. So what I'm seeing is potentially a big rise in micro business. Well, here's one thing that's definitely happening. More people are becoming entrepreneurs than ever. This is the fastest growth rate in entrepreneurship. The US surpassed 30 million small business owners, which just a few years ago was like 27 million. It's a very fast growth rate. I think there may be a resurgence of the retail market. We, the consumer, I believe, are starving just to get freaking out. And there's this little bit, I sense, and this is more subjective, but I sense there's a little bit of like, I'm tired of clicking and buying. It's great that the package shows up on the front doorstep the next morning. It's wonderful, but I'm a little bit tired of that. I just want to experience other humans again. And so I see an uptick in retail stores. My question is, I wonder if retailers are going to compete in a new way, that they realize it's a tactile experience. There's a human experience, not the transaction. People are not going to the store, I think, as much to say, I can get it $5 cheaper here, so I'm going to go here versus there. I think people are returning to stores as saying, I want to experience touching things. I want to talk to someone. I want someone saying, welcome to our store. I want to experience humans again. I think the retailers in particular that lean into that are going to do well.
Love
and,
that.
and I do see a resurgence in just overall activity of people trying to get out and be active. So conferences, I think, are going to come back in a big way. I think a lot of these things are going to return almost like a pendulum. It was so quiet for so long that people are like, I just got to get out.
Right.
And it's going to swing back.
Right. Absolutely. You know, when you were telling the first part of that, I went into Target the other day and there's this huge Ulta section. So it's like they're making it easy for, you know, the parent that's kind of running in that wants to do everything in one spot. Experience all of these just micro stores, like you said. It's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are you curious about in 2022? What are you really curious about? Where are you headed?
So for me personally, children's books. I released my first ever children's book, and it was in response to feedback from my readers of Profit First, who said, I wish my daughter had this, or I wish my son had this, or a child in my life had this. I never considered that. And I wrote a book called My Money Bunnies, and we didn't really promote it. And we just kind of put it out there. We shared it with some people, and wow, did a lot of people respond to that.
Right.
And now, like, oh my gosh, you know, I have an opportunity here to serve the next generation. Like if someone's doing the Money Bunnies today, well, 10 to 15 years from now, they may be starting their first business. They may have the fundamentals in place. What else is there? So myself, we have a small team here. We're actively researching how to be of service to children through children's books. So I'm super curious about that right now. That's
really cool. And, you know, entrepreneurs are younger and younger these days, like 8 and 9, right? Years old, right? It's great. So the last question before we wrap up here, Mike, you've been so generous and kind with all of your knowledge and wisdom. What motivates you? What's your personal mantra that kind of keeps you going when you have those moments of whatever it is, doubt, fear?
Oh,
anxiety,
you mean like every morning?
Yeah.
The tears are coming down. Like, I suck. And I do feel that way pretty much every morning. I have you can't see it. It's right off the camera here, but I have a sign up here. It says eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. And actually, I'll show you real quick. I'll switch my camera. I have two cameras here.
Awesome. Let's see if we can follow.
Here, see if this works. So this is my backup camera. If I can take this one. There's that sign.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So that's what I consider my life's mission or life's purpose. And I believe so many entrepreneurs struggle with different versions of poverty. You know, we want a business to have financial freedom, but we're not making money. We want personal freedom, do what we want when we want, but we have no time. And I've lived that myself. And I'm like, oh, that's why I'm on this planet. I got to fix this for me. And I think I have, and I'll have future challenges, but I have. And every time I find a solution for me, I have to share with other people that are struggling. So every morning when I wake up and when I'm feeling down, I'm like, dude, you got a mission on this planet. Eradicate entrepreneurial poverty, get back up and get out there and do it. It's the ultimate motivator for me.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Really cool. I love that. All right. So where can we find you? Where can the audience follow you more, promote you? What can we do to help you? Tell us.
Yeah. So I'd be honored is if you visit my website. It's called MikeMichalowicz.com, but no one can spell it. So here's the shortcut, MikeMotorbike.com. And I don't like motorcycles. So there you go. But it rhymes. It was my nickname in grade school, MikeMotorbike.com. All my stuff is up there. I would be honored if you simply subscribe, get the free resources. It's a way for me to stay in contact with you and be of service to you. And I hope that the free resources, which include 3 of the biggest keynotes I've ever done, will be of service to you. So MikeMotorbike.com.
Awesome. MikeMotorbike.com. Everyone needs to go there. There is gold there. Like, you will love it. You will find something that strikes you. I promise. I promise. I promise. Thank you, Mike. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Annette.
Wow. What an episode. Did you learn something new? I hope so. I am so happy you were able to be here with us today. I'd love to hear from you. Leave me a review and I will be sure to read it and respond to you. Also, if you'd like to email me, my email address is yourock@iEvolveconsulting.com. Hit subscribe, and every Tuesday you'll get notification when the next episode drops. We really have some amazing interviews and tips in the future. Anything you need, I'm here for you. I want you to keep your momentum. I want to help you stay accountable. I want you to stay inspired. I want you to evolve. So please let me know what you need, and I'd love to hear from you. Take care until next time.